Be sure to subscribe and click on the bell for notifications on future uploads. Hello everyone, Someone Bard here, or you can call me Sully, and welcome to the start of DC Month, where I take a look at the first 5 movies of the DCEU, or more specifically, the ones that are produced or directed by Zack Snyder, which also includes the infamous Snyderverse. And with the movies that Warner Bros. And DC have been putting out recently, most notably Wonder Woman 1984, Zack Snyder's cut of Justice League, and James Gunn's take on the Suicide Squad coming soon, I figured it would be fun to look over the films that started this universe and the mixed reception it has, as well as compare them to the later films in the franchise, even if they're not out yet. And I'm not counting those DC films that are outside this universe, despite coming out around the same time, like Joker, Teen Titans Go to the Movies, and the Lego Batman movie, as they're their own thing. So, let's begin with the one that started it all. Released in 2013 during Superman's 75th anniversary, it is the Snyder-directed, yet mostly Nolan-produced, Man of Steel. The movie is based on the characters from the comic books by DC Entertainment, and the character Superman, created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster. On the planet Krypton, Jor-El and his wife Laura have the planet's first natural birth they name Kal-El. But Jor visits the High Council, saying the core of Krypton is unstable and is destroying the planet due to the people mining so much from it. Yet General Zod and his soldiers attack the Council, as Jor escapes from them and takes what's called the Codex, which helps Krypton make genetically engineered births and the planet, and has it sent to Earth with their son Kal, just as Zod comes in to stop them and kills Jor. And as Kal's pod travels through space, Zod and his crew are arrested for treason and sent to the Phantom Zone. Kal's pod makes it to Earth, as the movie shows his life, now as Clark Kent, discovering his origins, meeting Metropolis reporter Lois Lane, and recalls his time with his adopted father, Jonathan, who tells Clark to keep his newly found powers a secret, as to not be revealed until the time comes. Both Krypton being destroyed, Zod and his Kryptonites are led out of the Phantom Zone and go searching for Kal-El and the Codex, hoping to make Krypton live again, using the Earth as its foundation. I mentioned that this is a Snyder-directed, yet mainly Nolan-produced film, as this feels more like a Christopher Nolan movie than a Zack Snyder movie, and where the clashing of the two could have worked, and it does in some places, it tends to come off more jumbled than I originally thought. But not completely. I mean, it's not a bad movie per se, as I did enjoy it quite a bit. Yet there are times that could have been handled better, as the film seems to be a mix of other director bits. The harsh atmosphere, editing, and deep dialogue around humanity of Christopher Nolan, the hyper-camera and explosions of Michael Bay, and the lens flares of J.J. Abrams. There's very little of Zack Snyder's tropes in this film, aside from an occasional visual and some instances of men looking like beefcakes. Even in outfits, but that's pretty much how Superman's portrayed. And no matter how it's all done, as I wouldn't blame Snyder for the choices he makes, it doesn't help that, at least to me, the film could have been more tighter in getting the points across. Jonathan Kent's death could have been kept a secret, or made simple, so as to not have him say the same thing in a different way each time, which is to keep Clark's powers hidden and that he'll change the world once he's ready, and most of his dialogue is like that. The scene where Superman takes out a drone trying to track him could have been saved for a post-credit scene, instead of a second-to-last scene of the film. The time where Lois is taken with Superman to Zod could have had more of an explanation to it than just her finding out more about Kal and giving Superman a chance to save her. And the final fight between Zod and Kal could have cut Zod's dialogue out to give a flowing fight throughout, especially by the end when Zod threatens to kill a family, and there's ample time for them to move out instead of standing there. But then I watched it again and made a better assumption, for some of it. Lois taken in by Zod? I can see it as being like that she's the audience watching and witnessing what's happening, like seeing how Superman's weak to Krypton atmosphere, as he has adapted to Earth for so long and has not accepted Krypton's way. And she did mention that Zod got into her mind the same way he did to Cal, which sounds like a deleted scene as it would have been the same thing, which could also explain why Zod brought her on board to show her what will happen to Earth. Or quite possibly because she's been the talk of the town for finding out about Clark and learning who he is. Some parts where dialogue is added or bits of humor is put in is to give people a chance to relax before the next big scene or moment. And despite Jonathan's death happening in a time where Clark could have easily saved him, I realize that it's more of a sacrificial death than a natural one. Even though Jonathan's death in the original Superman movie was more realistic, dying of a heart attack, this one's a tornado that breezes through. Yet, in a way, I can buy the moment as having its big meaning behind it of keeping Clark human and to learn that not everyone needs saving, even in something that happens naturally. But that doesn't excuse the cry Clark makes, which seems silly to me. However, I do have some positive stuff to mention. The effects do look good and sometimes cool to witness, the action is very decent and fast-paced, and the way Krypton looks is pretty good, not to mention that it's based on the Krypton from the Man of Steel comics from 1986. And speaking of comic references, a majority of the plot is based on the comics of Superman Lost Son, in which Zod had a history with Jor-El and tries finding Kal-El, and Superman Earth 1, of which Clark has various jobs, flashbacks to his childhood, and has Superman fight off an invasion, with Lois helping, and ending with Clark working at the Daily Planet. But one of, if not the most criticized part of the film, from the internet at least, is the so-called product placement during the Smallville fight between Superman, Fenora, and Namek, saying it's distracting from the action going on. And for me, I can defend this in that I don't think they're that distracting, even when I first saw it 8 years ago. And I wouldn't say that these are product placements because A, one of the characters in the movie works at the IHOP in the film, B, if they were product placements, they'd be mentioned in the credits, which they aren't, and C, the whole sequence is shot on location, and the stores are real, with only a few changes made. I also defend the fight between Zod and Superman, where they crash through buildings. And the internet criticizes that Superman causes more harm than good, feeling that people are getting killed by the rubble he causes. First of all, Zod is as much to blame here as Kal, so why is he given a pass? Second, people were already harmed before they even fought, when the World Machine started its work. Third, most of the buildings are completely empty when they fought, and throughout this whole ending, it seems as if everyone has gotten out fine, and they can move away from danger whenever they can, so they're not really standing in one place for too long. And fourth, Superman can't save everyone like everyone thinks he should, because he's too focused on fighting Zod. It's films like this that show that Superman doesn't need to be perfect 100% of the time. I can buy him spinning the Earth backwards to turn back time in the original film, as it's a fun and interesting take, but there has to be a time for him to be more than just a superhero, as Jonathan has been pointing out from time to time, and this film does that. After all, he lived his whole life on Earth despite being born on another planet and having superpowers. And this film goes to show that Superman is about as human as he can be, saving those that are needed and worth saving. As for the actors who played their characters, they did a fine enough job. Henry Cavill plays Clark Kent / Kal-El, Amy Adams plays Lois Lane, Michael Shannon plays General Zod, Diane Lane plays Martha Kent, Kevin Costner plays Jonathan Kent, Russell Crowe plays Jor-El, Anta Troll plays Fenora Yu, Arlette Zarul plays Laura Lor-Van, Lawrence Fishburne plays Perry White, Christopher Maloney plays Colonel Nathan Hardy, Harry Lennox plays General Calvin Swanwick, Dylan Sprayberry plays Clark Kent at 13, Cooper Timberline plays Clark Kent at 9, Richard Schiff plays Dr. Emil Hamilton, and Michael Kelly plays Steve Lombard. And in the end, I don't know whether to give this movie a 2.5+ rating or a 3-star rating because of how mixed it all seems to be for me. I might lean kind to the latter from my second thoughts on the film, but then I still think of the former for the problems that I have with it still. And I'm kinda torn up for a final verdict for this film, so I'll sum it up like this. As a whole, this film is rather fine. The characters are good, the story is alright, and the effects are rather good. Director Zack Snyder had done a fine job of bringing a version of Superman to life that, while not in the traditional way, is okay for what it goes for. even though the moments that do make a point tend to take too long to get to, and that there needed to be more of Snyder's style, I still like it enough as it kept my attention and I learned a bit more about Superman than I got in the past. And while my faults would make this film more stand out than being like an expensive and less darker Batman Begins, it honestly did its job well enough. And this is only the beginning of a wonderfully mixed extended universe, and what would have been known as the Snyderverse. So, that is it. So thank you for joining me. Like, comment, subscribe, follow me on Facebook or Twitter, support me on Patreon, and until next time for more of DC Month.